So I played a phenomenal round of Ground Branch with the guys recently and managed to not record my voice the entire time. So instead of giving you some sweaty Milsim gameplay, I'm going to give you the same gameplay, but I'm going to add some commentary that explains why we elected to make the decisions that we did and do a little in-stride after-action review, talking about our tactical choices and how the game went down. As you may or may not know, the next Ground Branch update is right around the corner. We don't yet have an official release date, but we do have an idea of what is going to be contained in the update. And so far, we know that there's going to be a massive animation overhaul that's going to improve the way that we handle weapons, perform magazine changes, carry weapons, the way that weapons interact with the environment to include compressed and broken down, low ready and high ready. So the character models will now move their weapons around to avoid contact with objects so you don't get that nasty clipping as has been the case in so many games for so long. There's also a new map coming. It's been hinted at. It looks like it takes place in Islamabad, Pakistan. In fact, it does look like a model replica inspired by the Osama bin Laden compound, which is going to be a fantastic and exciting way to enjoy the game. And as a reminder, if you want to grab a copy of Ground Branch, this might be the best time to do it. We're in the holidays. It's going to be a great time to enjoy the latest update as soon as it drops, and this is the most tactical shooter that I know of. And you can grab a copy of it from my game store. My game store is nexus.gg/controlledpairsgaming. And if you purchase the game from my game store, it'll actually help benefit the channel directly. I'm super, super grateful for that. And if you want to check out my game store and merch and my blog and the podcast and all of the other things that I offer in the way of content, you can visit controlledpairs.gg to stay up to date on the latest and greatest. Now, let's take a look at the gameplay. The first clip I want to show you guys is from right when we started a level called Creek. This is a co-op mode that we were playing in a large open map. This map is really challenging because of the amount of cover and concealment that the enemy has at their disposal. And on top of all of that, I ran with the Mark 18 with a T2 red dot, so I don't have exactly a setup that would lend itself nicely to this sort of scenario. And we're all kind of starting already in contact. We're behind some hard cover, but in the low ground that's off to the southeast as well as direct east, we get in contact right away. You can see once we take fire, I immediately begin suppressing known, likely, and suspected. So I took a couple shots. I didn't know exactly where the enemy was, but I had a general idea based off the audible signature of the report of their rifles, and I began suppressing that direction. We did take a casualty in the process. I see that casualty and move back behind a tree to get to some cover, and I've transitioned here to my sidearm. I know that my rifle is dry, but I don't want to attempt an emergency reload and take that gun out of action for any longer than it needs to, so instead I'm going to fight with my Glock until I get a buddy over to poprovide some security while I change back to my primary. Seeing a buddy, swap back to my primary, get a fresh mag into the gun. That's kind of what's going into my mind in this, initial little firefight, and I think it's a good example of just kind of the habits that you can build in games or in real life or otherwise. Here you can see our fire team approaching a series of structures off to the front, about 200 meters or so. We've already been in contact off to the right, and then we expect that there's also likely going to be enemies in the building to our front. I think this is an interesting way to kind of illustrate how I think about approaching structures after taking fire. So we are already taking fire now from the structure itself. We've spotted at least one bad guy in there.
Second story window,
Hey, if you're standing at the top of the hill, make sure you crouch because they can see you from the back.
Then we know off to our rear right, over my right shoulder, our other guys are in contact with the village proper in the center of the map. So we've got two firefights going here at once.
backing up.
I know we need to get into that structure. It affords the best cover. It also gives us the best observation on the center of the village. So after we made that decision, I asked G-Man to go ahead and get some smoke out and prep the environment for us to approach the structure. So here you can see him getting the smoke ready and obscuring the enemy's observation and fields of fire so that we can safely approach.
I got red and green.
Got another one?
Yep, I see him.
They're moving now.
Green smoke going out.
No, yeah, they're moving around those buildings.
Do it front to obstruct the windows. Then I'm gonna throw another one to the right to obstruct the guys to the right.
You heard G-Man's explanation for how he plans to obstruct the enemy's field of view. We know there's enemies to the right, so smoke is going between us and them, and then he also put one way out there right in front of the windows of the building that we're approaching. We want to make sure that we suppress the building that we're moving towards as well as we creep up on it. And if we already took contact from it, if we're like in a combat zone, then we'd want to lead with high explosive or hit it with a shoulder fire munition. Here, we're treating it more in a counter-terror kind of scenario, so we're kind of leading with smokes and bangs. When we move up to the structure, we're not running straight at the open breaches. We've also still got security back at the position that we just departed. And I don't run straight for the building. I'm actually moving to contain the rear of it because we know if the enemy starts taking contact inside, they're likely to squirt and try to get out the backside and take cover. We've also taken one casualty. Now Minnow is out of the fight and Gunbird is out of the fight. We're down 2. We only have, I think, 3 guys still up.
Yep, got it.
Coming to you.
Oh, shoot. Help.
That's why we maintain security on the rear of the building so that as the enemy takes contact and falls back, we can engage them while they try to retrograde or maneuver on the target. Here we're being suppressed, but you see I'm holding my corner. My job is not to move to where the gunfight is. My job is to hold this corner, and I'm doing exactly that. I'm keeping the gun pointed at the target. Every once in a while looking over, making sure my team is still doing all right, but never leaving my sector of fire. This clip is a good example of peeling. Peeling is just a different way to bound. That means we've got several members of the fire team moving while other members of the fire team are static and engaging targets, suppressing and providing cover. When you peel, it's a bound, but you're doing it from a file. In this case, we are all in a file oriented on the center of the map. The last man in the file breaks down, moves to the rear of his teammates who are firing, and then reestablishes at the front of the formation. You continue to repeat this process until everyone is out of the enemy's field of fire. You can see there also, as I was a point man, I managed to take contact pretty close, get to my secondary, managed to destroy the guy with my secondary before going back to my primary and doing a mag change. Quick little transition drill. Also very handy to have those features available in tactical games like Ground Branch. Doing underground stuff is always extremely dangerous. Here we approach a cave entrance. I ask Matt to prep a flashbang and I take lead. Remember, number 1 man never employs handheld. You always ask your number 2 to do it. So I ask him to go ahead and bang this long corridor, and then I'm going to lead in. I pie it a little bit for him. He ends up stepping into the fatal funnel and getting smoked as a result. While this incident is completely hilarious, it also brings up a great point. When you employ handhelds, you obviously do it from the 2nd or 3rd or 4th position, never from the point position. And when you do it, you try to break your wrist on the frame or the threshold opening. And what I mean by that is it's a hook throw. You reach up and then you transition the palm of your hand to the front of the frame. You release the handheld high into the center of the room to try to maximize effect, giving it the best opportunity possible for it to distract or maim or kill or whatever the munition is designed to do. I've never really seen this actually simulated in a game, and it'd be a good idea for games like Ground Branch, especially who have an eye towards realism, to try to put together a feature like this in a future update. Moments later, Grover and I find ourselves moving down a long corridor. We should default into cross coverage in a situation like this, and we sort of did, but Grover did get out a little bit ahead of me. I spot a guy, engage him, and then kind of that entices Grover to move forward into my sector of fire. I quickly get my muzzle off of him and go to the high ready, and we solve the problem. But it's another one of those things. You got to be aware of where you're at in time and space. Make sure you understand where the threat is likely to be, and make sure you know where your buddy's gun is pointing. That being said, the only person responsible for fratricide or friendly fire is the person who pulls the trigger. It's your job to keep your muzzle off your buddies. You never know how that lead man is going to behave. You have to react to it and make sure everyone is safe. With only one hostile left on the map, Grover and I move into a bounding overwatch, kind of working ourselves around the perimeter of where we think that final man is. And sure enough, I have an opportunity to take him and win the round. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you did, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate your support. Remember, if you want to grab a copy of Ground Branch, you can do that by going to my game store at nexus.gg/controlledpairsgaming, where your purchase will support the channel directly. I am Controlled Pairs. I play the most immersive tactical shooters and combat sims in the world. This is Ground Branch.